Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is Colony Wars Vengeance for the Sony PlayStation, developed by Psygnosis and released in 1998. This is a 3D space pilot flying game. I guess we'd call this a space flight simulator. My first exposure to this type of game, I think, was from the X-Wing and TIE Fighter franchise back from the 90s when LucasArts was releasing games. There's a different story to those games, of course, all around Star Wars, but it's the same style of game here. This is the type of game where you pilot a spaceship and you're basically looking out of the cockpit window. At its most basic, you're flying a ship and shooting other ships. You don't get out of the ship and walk around, you don't control a person really, anything like that. You're controlling the ship and its weapons. Colony Wars was a series of games, apparently, and this is the second one of 3. It's also connected to Colony Wars and Colony Wars Red Sun, but you certainly don't need to have those games to enjoy this one. After playing this one, though, I'm going to be tracking down the others for sure. I can't say I understand the story behind this one yet. Definitely not fully, but basically as I understand it, space travel exists, clearly, and colonies have been established on various planets. There is some sort of fighting amongst the colonies, and you are part of a force to try to keep things in order. I think the ships handle pretty well in this game, with the PlayStation controller. And I do like how you have various weapons that you can utilize in battle. You have lasers, then you have a laser that's just going to damage shields, and as you would imagine, you need to take down shields before you can do any real damage to a ship. You also have different weapons you can choose from sometimes, and it depends on the mission. Sometimes they just naturally change. There might be a laser drill of sorts that can sort of bore into materials, and there's also a grappling cable. There are a few more, but those are the basic ones. There are also missiles that you can use sometimes, but honestly, I am not good at utilizing these missiles. If there was one thing I can criticize this game for, it's the way they executed missiles. You have to arm them first, and then you fire them, and I think you use the same button, and I don't know. Saying it now, it seems it should be simple enough to use this button to make it work, but in practice, I struggle to use missiles. It's some sort of a weird timing thing, I guess. It's something I have to work on. I managed through the first 7 or 8 levels barely using missiles, but I imagine that eventually it's going to become something that's much more important, so I'm going to have to figure it out. I think like many games of this type, they do a pretty good job of mixing up tasks on each level. The goal here isn't always to just destroy enemy ships. I suppose that's the main thing usually, right? You gotta defend something or blow something up, but it's not always the exact thing you have to do. The mission might make you destroy all ships, of course, but it might also make you protect your ships. You might have to drill through comets for materials, or maybe tow bombs out of range of space stations. Within the first 5 or 6 levels you play, you're going to find a significant variety of things to do. It's not as simple as you're in a battlefield and go blow stuff up. Also, depending on how you do with certain missions, it might change what your next mission is. I think this is pretty interesting because this also means that failing a particular mission doesn't mean the game is over. However, it might make it more difficult if you need assistance online and you're trying to track down a walkthrough video, if you're looking to complete a stage. I ran into this one level where I was supposed to be towing reactors to a jump gate, and I found my ship was deteriorating after I was only moving like 1 or 2 of the reactors. I'm sure that I'm following the instructions, but something's wrong. I'm doing something wrong. When I look for a video online on how to beat this particular stage, the video walkthrough that I was looking at didn't even touch this mission, so ultimately you're going to find that there are different mission paths throughout the game, and it sort of depends on how successful you are with each level. So that type of variety is great, because theoretically, you could do a mission wrong on this pass-through and then have a totally different outcome, which would be kind of nice. These are pretty decent PlayStation graphics, and the cutscenes are like you would expect for graphics of this era. There is definitely a story that plays out as you proceed, and whether you like the story or not, I think that the missions in space, they're enjoyable. Without paying attention to the story, this is a fun game. You can upgrade certain parts of your ship in your hangar before you start a mission. It's not hugely customizable, but it's important. You can increase your engines or your shield or your boost. You can also sometimes choose a different ship as well. When you fly around, you can adjust the way you're viewing yourself on screen, and this is pretty common, depending on how you like to play, really, or the part of the game you might be playing, whatever the level is. I like looking out of the cockpit personally. I like the view of you being in the cockpit as though you were actually sitting in the ship, so you can see the physical parts of the cockpit around you. You can also switch to look out of the cockpit but with none of those things obscuring your view. Or you can also move the camera outside the ship and behind you, so you can see the whole ship in front of you. You can also switch the video to see what's behind your ship. It's something that's pretty useful in a dogfight, especially if you're using a cable to tow something. Things certainly got easier for me with this game when I started using the booster. I didn't realize that there was a boost if you combine both of the accelerator buttons. It definitely changes the way you play, and it makes the fights faster, and it's actually kind of easier to find and interact with enemies. I've been trying to get the best fidelity out of this game. So far, I've tried it on a few different platforms, and the best I've seen so far is running it on an emulator on a PC using the disc. So you can crank up the graphic settings, and you can actually get the ships to look pretty darn sharp, which is really nice. I certainly haven't beaten this game yet, but flying around looks really good here. And you're not always in space, too, which is pretty awesome. There are missions that you're going to find yourself on a planet, and I really like that. It's great to see this sort of variety in a background. As far as space simulators go, I think this is a pretty good one. I'm definitely interested to see where the story's going to go with this. It's a lot of fun. Well, that's all I have today for Colony Wars Vengeance for the Sony PlayStation. Thanks for giving this one a watch. I'll catch you on another video.